Every church addresses the relationship between church and family in different ways, some with benign neglect and others with a systematic and even surgical intentionality. At one end of the continuum, there are churches that expect an organic relationship to grow in the midst of business as usual church environment. Programs are planned and ministries are created to address every life stage, and then professional ministers are hired and volunteers are recruited to become spiritual leaders and disciplers for everyone in the body, from newborns all the way up to senior adults. On the other end of the spectrum are churches that are a gathering of individual families whose fathers are like household priests. Absent in these churches are age-targeted ministries, as parents are assigned to and accountable for ministry and disciple making in the home. Somewhere in between are churches where age group ministries exist in some form, with a greater or lesser emphasis on equipping parents for spiritual leadership, and then involving them in both a home-based and church-based ministry with their children. In the book Perspectives on Family Ministry, the authors describe three primary philosophies of ministry to families. When a church leader uses the term family ministry, he or she is likely thinking in one of these three directions. The first is called the therapeutic or counseling approach. Up until the turn of the century, family ministry was primarily therapeutic, to nurture and strengthen relationships in the home. As I mentioned in a previous session, the goal was to establish healthy churches by creating healthy families. This would be accomplished through the programs or services of the church or a church agency. One example of this approach in the Southern Baptist world was the development by Lifeway of magazines like Home Life and Living with Teenagers, with monthly articles about raising well-adjusted children and having a fulfilling marriage. Parachurch ministries like Focus on the Family and Fall Festival of Marriage thrived during this period as Christian parents took advantage of national conferences and workshops addressing their marriage and parenting needs. It was also during this time that church-based and Christian counseling flourished. Many churches were providing helping professionals on staff or training non-professional volunteers to provide marriage and family counseling. Typical church programs included ongoing courses, seminars, marriage retreats, and family recreation options. The second philosophy is called Church as Family. This approach is a little more difficult to explain because it doesn't necessarily rely on targeted programs. Rather, this philosophy relies on the natural life and rhythm of a close-knit community of believers to establish family-like relationships in the church. The goal of establishing closer intra-church relationships is to help the church become a family. And the rationale behind this approach is that healthy relationships in the church will naturally transfer into the home. Programmatically, things like church-wide fellowships, family life centers, small groups, and life situation or age group ministry is used to facilitate the building of these relationships. The third approach is called the nuclear family perspective. Intact families are targeted as a training ground for discipleship. In this approach, the responsibility for spiritual training of children is transferred from church leaders to parents. And as a result, the role of church programming is then reoriented to supplement the efforts at home. Churches accomplish this philosophy in a variety of modes. Some adapt their age group focus to a new model, while others completely abandon the church-based approach. And in most cases, age group ministry is either redirected or sometimes eliminated. This philosophy transfers into programs focused on equipping parents for spiritual leadership and providing resources for home-based discipleship. These three philosophies are the bases for the family ministry models that we find in the church today. While churches, especially Baptist churches, cannot be forced into a predefined mold, most churches either intentionally or unintentionally minister to with and through families using a combination of the following models. Now, with each of these models, there are philosophies that guide, to a greater or lesser degree, the ministry decisions in the church that reflect these models. The first is the programmatic model. Here is where we have primarily the philosophy of the therapeutic approach along with church's family. The second model is family-based. All three philosophies are adhered to in this model. A little bit of the therapeutic, some of the church's family, and a little bit of the nuclear family approach mixed together. In the family equipping model, you'll predominantly find the church's family and the nuclear family approach generally used in equal measure. And in the family integrated approach, you'll find the church's family and nuclear family approach used with the predominant influence of the nuclear family philosophy. Now return to your note guide to finish the lesson.